Welcome, Christiane, and many thanks for being part of the ECFR's program marking the 25th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement. It is a big honor to have you.
Well, it's a big pleasure for me. Bosnia has been the defining moment of my life, and this is an important anniversary.
Indeed, I was a teenager back then, and my parents spent the entire siege in Sarajevo, so we're very thankful for your moral clarity and courageous reporting. I want to start our conversation by reflecting on the role you played in influencing the decision makers in Washington and European capitals to intervene. And I'd like to ask you to react to the quote by President Clinton, who in 2011 said the following about you. "I like her very much, but the uncharted hell she gave me in the first 2 years while I was president about not marching the entire American army in Sarajevo was a gift. There are sometimes relatively few when you can say that a single journalist had such a decisive impact on the lives of people and the set of political decisions that followed." Could you react to that? What do you think 25 years later?
Well, I find it very moving, to be honest, for the president at the time to reflect like that and to be so generous about my work and the work of many, many of my colleagues. It was my generation's Vietnam, and it was in the era of never again. We had been raised on the clear moral imperative that a genocide is intolerable, unacceptable, violates every norm that had then been laid down after the Second World War. And this was the first massacre based on ethnicity, based on religion, based on, race to an extent in Europe after World War II. So that's what motivated us, all of us. And that also being in Bosnia, in Sarajevo, in other parts of Bosnia for all the years of the war, and seeing with our own eyes what was going on day in and day out, and the targeted killing of civilians, children, women, old men, non-combatants. Very, very important to remember that. Obviously, there was fighting between, military types as well, but the most of the fighting was targeted against non-combatants with a clear aim, and that was to clear and seize and hold territory by the Bosnian Serbs and their masters in Serbia. And when we figured out what was going on in front of our eyes, we called it like it was. To be fair to President Clinton, I was not calling on him to march the entire US military into Bosnia. I thought maybe a few well-placed airstrikes would stop tigers and bullies, which the Bosnian Serbs were. And in fact, that was shown to be the case after they decided to, finally, after the massacre at Srebrenica, after the following massacre in the Sarajevo market, NATO, led by the United States, did go in with only Air Force and cleared some important Bosnian Serb military emplacements. And that stopped the war within a very short period of time. And that enabled President Clinton to launch the important diplomacy to end the war. And of course, now we are marking 25 years of the Dayton Peace Accords.
Yes, thank you. And that perfectly brings us to the present. And you're one of the rare stars in journalism who did not forget about Bosnia. We saw you in the introductory video reporting from Srebrenica on the 20th anniversary of the genocide. And you covered the rulings of the ICTY tribunal in The Hague. But yet, for all of us who care and worry about the revisionist trends in the region, the aggressive denial of war crimes and genocide, the glorification of war criminals by the same politicians who are suppressing democracy and local media freedoms, we'd like to see more journalists of your profile involved. So how can we generate more interest and international coverage for these issues, which are a continuation of conflict but lack the drama of war?
Well, look, you're asking, it's a big ask because we were all there for the entire time of the war and for several years after the US-led NATO force that was the peacekeeping force in Bosnia, and we were all there for many, many years. But you're right. You know, other things happen in the world, and when suddenly we see pieces come, we think our job is elsewhere to try and highlight what else is going on. And I would submit, and I think perhaps even the U.S. administration would agree, the Clinton administration at the time, that because of what we did in Bosnia, we made it impossible for the international community to get away with the same kind of disaster in Kosovo. So what happened in Kosovo was when peace negotiations went nowhere with Slobodan Milosevic, the international community, you know, really led by the United States, led by President Clinton. I think also Tony Blair, if I'm not mistaken. In any event, it was at that time in 1998, yes, 99, where they led an intervention, including airstrikes, that prevented a genocide in Kosovo. So I have to say that we did our jobs, but you're absolutely right. And that, as you know better than I do, and I'm just going to read it from here, you know, the UN Security Council in April delivered a report lamenting the solidification since Dayton of the ethnocentric politics that were there before the war and which have been cemented in what you might want to call a Cold War ever since. And that, plus what they call a pandemic of essential dysfunctionality politically and corruption, have been very, very difficult in order to push Bosnia forward. I have just seen a new film. I've seen a screener. It's called Quo Vadis Ida, and it's about a pair of Bosnian. It's by a pair of Bosnian filmmakers, Jasmila Zbanic and her husband Damir, and it tells the story of a couple of days, the key days during the fall of Srebrenica and the massacre by General Mladic and his forces. And honestly, I can tell you, when I first saw it, I felt like I was there again. I felt the panic, I felt the anger, I felt the fury, I felt the shame, and I felt the terrible, terrible moral cowardice that allowed that to happen at the end of the 20th century. And so I do regret very deeply that, yes, the Dayton Peace Accords ended the war and it saved lives and it stopped people being killed. And that was really important. But it also did solidify the ethnic boundaries. And as many people have said, it rewarded Bosnian Serbs with their own rump statelet, which they're still trying to, you know, sometimes they threaten to secede. So I would hope that this next period of years, in the next 25 years, you know, that can be changed, that people need to learn to live together. Bosnia was meant to be a place where all ethnicities were able to live together, have their own rights, equal rights, and be protected, all of them. It wasn't meant to be solidifying, you know, a group of people who went to war. And I think you'll find that your young people, whether they're Croat, Serb, or Muslim in Bosnia, don't want this anymore. The new generation do not want to be imprisoned by the stubbornness of their fathers and their grandfathers' generation.
Yes, and exactly what I wanted to talk to you about the new generation and the local agents of change in post-conflict societies, but in particularly Bosnia. We have invited representatives of multi-ethnic political parties and civil society actors who are carving out small islands of change in Bosnia. And we want to talk to them about their potential, but also limits of what they can achieve in this situation. How do you see their role? And especially, how do you see the role of women in this regard?
I think you had elections, right, in Bosnia last month, which showed very clearly what young people are thinking. And in certain strongholds, whether it was Banja Luka or Sarajevo, the nationalist grip was loosened. And I think that is, you know, probably the beginning of a forward trend. You know, you never can predict, but wherever you look these days, wherever it might be, whether it's elections in Africa, whether it's in Belarus, whether it's in the Middle East, wherever it might be, not to mention in the United States of America, where a massive and unprecedented turnout decided to come out and confront what was an increasingly authoritarian and autocratic takeover of the democratic process in the United States. And I think young people were the movers and shakers, and women. Can I just say women? Women are change agents. They were change agents over Srebrenica. They never allowed the world to forget what happened in Srebrenica. They kept the world's conscience, in their grip where it should be over what happened in Srebrenica, and that there must never be that kind of brutality and genocide tolerated ever again. But young people, I think they are the solutions to the future, and it's the only way forward. It's the only way forward.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Christiane. I hope you will find some time to follow our conference next week. As I told you, we've invited an impressive young, a group of impressive young politicians, civil society actors, and activists. And hopefully one day they can come to your program and tell you about their efforts to move things forward in Bosnia.
Hey, let's hope. I'm always open. I really do share my platform with people who really want to make a difference and want to make change for the good in this world. So bring it on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.